From the arena to the front office, this is Scoreboard. I'm Chris Titley, and each episode brings you stories from the game of sport, where mindset, money, and meaning shape what comes next. Athletes, coaches, owners, and business leaders unpack the moments that matter, because the scoreboard isn't just about winning, it's about life beyond the game. Now let's get to this week's episode. Hi, it's Chris Titley here, and on today's episode of Scoreboard, the podcast, I'm joined by Liam Wright in person here in Brisbane. What a beautiful day. Liam, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Mate, what have you been up to this morning?
I've been at Ballymore, just soaking up the sunshine, getting a bit of weights in and just a bit of rehab stuff.
Yeah, mate, we're sitting here on the, the 8th of May already, 2025. How's your 2025 been?
Rugby-wise, it's been a bit rubbish. The rest of it's been good. I've enjoyed the rest of the year and everything, but obviously injuries in sports suck. And on the back of a few now, so just trying to get ourselves back ready and playing footy again. Yeah,
mate. The shoulder, it's been niggling for a while?
Yeah, right shoulder. So the same sort of, same injury that we picked up in that first test against Wales last year, and got a couple games in at the start of the year, and then it sort of seems to have re-gone and re-went. So still in the process of trying to really get to the bottom of it. Yeah, mate. So one of the traits that I've spoken to a number of athletes is resilience. You're obviously going through a period of now, a down period. How are you on the resilience front? Yeah, I think if I didn't have resilience, I think it's probably one of my biggest assets. I think with the way the last probably 4 or 5 years have gone for me injury-wise and rugby-wise, probably wouldn't still be here without it. It's carried me through, and probably one of those muscles that you don't want to have to flex, but it's something that I think I've got to believe that it'll set me in good stead for the rest of my life, and just keep keeping on. Just keep keeping on. Now let's talk about Liam Wright, rugby. Where did the interest in rugby come from? Well, born in South Africa. My parents are both South African. They're rugby nutters as well. So I guess I remember my dad would wake me up on Sunday morning at 4 or 5 a.m. when we couldn't sleep, and just watch all the games that we recorded the night before, watch all the Super Rugby. Even my mum's really into it. She'll give a very thorough analysis of games, and I could just grow up loving it, watching it. When I first started playing, I was probably more, what Mum said, my first game, she caught me doing handstands on the field and cartwheels on the field. So it wasn't so much that, but it was just it's always been a part of my family and growing up and taking that through. And watching it on the TV in South Africa, what was the team that you followed, and what was the format of the competition then? Was it the 12s or the 10s, Super 10, Super 12, Super 15 or 14? I think it would have been Super 14 probably when I first started taking most of an interest. It was the Sharks, Durban Sharks, Natal Sharks, that Dad and I followed back then, and the Springboks, and obviously now it's the Reds and the Wallabies, so it's changed a bit. But I remember going to Shark Park a few times when I was younger and watching the guys play, and I remember the Sharks and the Bulls, the semi-finals and the finals there, 2007 through 2009. It was a pretty good period there of the Sharks doing really well and being competitive, and I guess it just sparked an interest, a common bond between my dad and I and my mum and I, and then as you sort of go older and get to understand the game a bit more, I've just really come to love it. Who are the players in the Sharks then, mate? Could you name the 1 to 15 then? Probably couldn't name the 1 to 15. I remember obviously the Beast coming through. Stefan de Blanche was the fullback. My dad always used to tell me that he was so fit that he had to, above and beyond all the team fitness, he'd have to go and run extra stairs to get his heart rate up and get as fit as he could. Urban myth. Yeah, there'll probably be people in our team that'll say the same thing, and we're like, no, it didn't happen. But I just grew up watching a lot of those guys. Skolkberger didn't play for the Sharks, but tough flanker that sort of probably tried to model a bit of my game across, and just enjoyed watching a lot of footy, and they were the guys to watch when you're a young kid in South Africa growing up. Yeah, and then the positioning of watching, you mentioned a flanker then. Is that something at the time you thought, this is a pretty cool position as opposed to the glorious fullback or the tight head prop? Yeah, I mean, my dad was an eighth man. I don't know if there was ever... I've never played another position, really, to be honest. I've just been sort of definitely known I wanted to be in the forwards, not fast enough, not skilled enough, I think, to be in the backs, especially when I'm growing up, and had a bit of ticker, I guess, when I was younger, and that's kind of the thing you do. And I was the skinny, small, lanky kid that was light enough to get chucked up in the line out when they started lifting, and so you become sort of just positionally around your body shape, and that's where I was. That's where I ended up. I loved watching those guys, Victor Matfield. I loved watching him and reading his books and his understanding of the line out and how he decipher and decoded and all that sort of stuff. I think really formed into my sort of senior rugby styles. Skolkberger, Heinrich Rousseau, George Smith, from Australia, just guys that knew how to get over the ball, had specific skills, but also just you had to show a lot of ticker and a lot of heart to play in those things. And while I probably didn't have the athleticism and the physicality and all that sort of stuff back then, it was one thing that could get you through.
Did you watch the games as a child and go, oh, come on, you're just swinging it wide, they should have gone on the left side? That sort of kid? Oh, come on, no, kick it, tip it over the top.
Yeah, maybe a little bit. Probably just echoing whatever mum and dad said. And
follow from
how you do, you see what they say.
A little bit one-sided maybe with oh, come on, ref.
Yeah, exactly. yeah. We blame the ref when you were a bit younger. Just loved it. It was something we did on Sunday mornings. You'd watch the rugby back.
Yep.
And you'd go and play it on Saturday and Sunday. So it was great.
And then the move to Australia. Talk about that. At 7 years old.
Yeah. I think it was just a decision mum and dad made around probably what was best for my sister and I. And I think growing up at that age in South Africa, it was quite unstable. The government changed a lot, and it just probably from their point of view wasn't the best place to raise a family. And it's a pretty brave decision, I think, on their part. And all our family's still over there. It's my sister, myself, my mum and dad that are over here. All our cousins, uncles, aunties are over there. And to move away from that and in the pursuit of a better life for Kelly and I, it's pretty awesome of them, and turned out really great. We love our life over here. It's been awesome, given us plenty of opportunity, and I've been lucky enough to represent a new country, and love it.
Yeah, is there still a tinge or sneak a tinge of the South African accent, or not really?
Nah, not from me. Oh, the boys get into me. Apparently I say off. I say
off, yeah. He gets sent
really
off.
Really weird, yeah. So if you call the lineouts, you say off, and they all go oof. And dance instead of dance, and a few things like that. But no accent. My mum and dad still have it, but I don't really hear it with them. It's just second nature, and but lost it.
And switching the following the green and following South Africa to then turning to gold, mate. How did you go as a kid there?
I probably was a bit later than would have thought. Like, you sort of grow up supporting them, and you just stick with your team for a bit. But then once it sort of got to probably the last sort of year of school, year coming out of school, that's when you sort of your mates and guys you've watched are starting to and trained against and trained with, starting to climb up the ranks, and you go, oh, I'm watching that guy. He's used to play with him, or he played at East, or he knew this guy, and that's when you sort of went, following probably the players more than the team, and then that just turned into a love for those teams, for the Reds, for the Wallabies, and then obviously to get to represent those teams it just reinforces that of these are my teams now, this is where I am, and you really grow to love it.
And growing up at school when the state of origin was on, you weren't born in either Queensland or New South Wales. Who did you support?
I picked Queensland. I probably didn't have much of a choice. It was at a pretty good time for Queensland, just about.
Yep.
I only start remembering state of origin when I went to boarding school, and we'd sort of all get together in the boarding house and watch it, and it was 85% Queenslanders there and 15% New South Wales, and I think it was just about to start or in the middle of that 8 straight period. And,
good fun.
Yeah. You sort of had to pick then. I didn't really know rugby league, never been a thing watching it or anything like that, but it was all the hype and physicality around Origin, and surrounded by Queenslanders, so I went for Queensland, and I'm staunch Queensland now. I love it. You couldn't get.
Looking forward to the series coming up actually in a couple of months' time. Yeah,
it's going to be great.
Growing up, you mentioned your idols when you came to Australia, and you developed through your teenage years, etc. Were there some other idols there in Australia, or rugby, or sport?
Yeah, I think probably from a rugby point of view, guys like Poey, Hoops, George Smith. George was in the Red squad actually in 2018 in my first contract year, and to be able to sort of see the things he does and the little drills and that was awesome. In 2019 when I was around the Wallabies fold, Poey was there coming back from a calf injury before the World Cup, and just seeing the way they train and just being able to rub sides with them is like really cool. Obviously all those flankers and stuff. You know, Bernie coached us for a bit in that 2019 period, and I was still probably like pretty rugby mad back then. I think I've really come to appreciate a lot more sports now, and you know, support the basketball and watch all that stuff and love my cricket. But in terms of sort of Aussie sport heroes, it was all real rugby based.
Yeah, you mentioned basketball, mate. We're in the throes to the playoffs right now. There's been a few upsets.
It has, yeah.
Every team that's seeded high has lost their first game.
Yeah, that's crazy. I saw Lakers just got knocked out, and I'm a massive LeBron fan.
Oh, right, okay.
So that's a bit tough to
Your
see,
thoughts on the Luka trade?
Interesting where it came from.
You would have been a massive sort of LeBron and AD combo. And
yeah,
you're like, hold on a second, what's going on?
Yeah,
I've got Luka.
Just, I guess you see now that you still need a big, and AD was that guy, and they just didn't go all the way. So whether that's a pass or a fail, or whether they'll get there next year, I think you still need more than just shooting guards and power forwards and stuff. You need that big in the centre, and when that trade got blocked I think it was for Mark Williams, it was always going to be a bit tough.
Mate, we're sitting here in the early throes of round 2 of the NBA playoffs. I'm going to hold you to this. Who's your tip?
I can't say I've been following it, so I don't want to say someone who's gone out. But
well, the Nuggets had an upset. Joker got 40 points, 20 rebounds yesterday. They beat OKC. I think they're playing again today.
Yeah, I was going to
Good
say
series,
with Jokic, hard to pick against him.
What about the East? Cleveland are on the attack but down 2-0, and Boston as well on the other side. Thinking, okay, can we go again?
I still think probably Nuggets are the. I haven't watched a lot of it, but I think once Jokic goes off and gets that team firing, there's hard to stop. Like, he's got triple doubles in the same game.
His arm's like a quarterback sometimes.
Exactly.
Just throws it quick and fast. You just make sure you have to be on the receiving end and catch it
you've got to be ready.
and get it in. Yeah. So rugby, when did you sort of work out that you were pretty good?
I don't know if I've even worked it out now. I think for me, the whole thing with rugby was like I enjoyed it, and I probably got to enjoy it more once it became out of school. Like it's really no one really forcing you to go to trainings, doing all that stuff. And my parents moved to Sydney from Brisbane back in 2012, so I ended up boarding for a few years at the back end there, and then you sort of carry on for school up in here with all your mates here. Everything you know is up here. And I think that was really a point where you go, all right, if I want to get down to training at East, I've got to find a way to get there. I've got to schedule myself, and that's the way it's going to be. If I want to play footy, it's because I enjoy it and want to go through. And that was a real big turning point for me, whereas I think the pressure of GPS rugby was ridiculous. Like we ended up winning the premiership undefeated, but there's only 8 games, and if you lose one, your whole senior year is ruined pretty much. Like I think going back to club was just a good way to enjoy rugby again.
Was that the year with all the stars in it, by the way? Kalen Ponga and...
Yeah, Kalen Ponga, Brody Croft, Jaden Sewer.
It's when the YouTube clip started coming out, right?
Yeah, that was when the Waterboy started going crazy and going viral.
Is it? Okay.
The Kalen Ponga highlights, the Churchy 24.
Well, there's some Liam Wright highlights there as well?
I'm in the back of Kalen Ponga. There's a few of them trying to clean them out, but I'm not actually, didn't warrant my own highlights reel back then.
Yeah.
Mine had some breakdowns.
But I think there was you won most games by a significant margin.
Yeah, I think our average scoreline was like 51 to 19 or 51 to...
But then come out of school, you're like, okay, you can play rugby if you want to, or you can get contracted by Ponga and all this stuff. But then it's like, well, you don't have to. You can go to uni and be like what normal people do, is go and study or do a craft or whatever it might be. Yeah.
And so came out of school, didn't get any pathways or anything like that. Go play footy at East. Even that was a sort of a harder choice. I was at King's, studied at QUT instead of UQ, and then played footy at East. So it was kind of all over the shop, and there was a lot of sort of those, I don't know if you remember those little, call them like sports scholarships at UQ, try and get everyone there. For me, it was a bit of just a blanket recruitment sort of thing, just take everyone, and they already had the Q1 flanker there from going to UQ, so I was like...
Who's that?
Connor Moroney. He runs a podcast now too, actually.
Does he?
He's a good guy. Yeah. In Canada, I think, somewhere.
There you go. What a champion.
Yeah.
Champion in the industry.
Yeah. But then it was just kind of always liked that, taking a bit of the tougher road. I felt like East was a bit more of sort of the battlers' playground where we'd go and really have to earn your rights and earn everything you get. And as I said, sort of didn't have a license yet, was living at King's over in Toowong, uni at QUT, and so I became a master of the public transport system of the bus, and really had to, if I needed to get somewhere or wanted to do something or was up to me to do it, and really sort of instilled that drive. And I guess in terms of when did I find out I was good, for me it was just, can I get to the next thing? When I was playing for Colts, can I get myself into the under-20s pathway? And I sort of had a little plan in my head of, all right, get into the under-20s, try get into the bench, try get a starting role, try get to Oz-20s if possible, and just kind of just keep going for the next thing. It was never like, got to end up here at the Reds or got to end up at the Wallabies. Or
So it was never a big, hairy, audacious goal. It was like a step-by-step goal going, well, I like this, but if I keep going.
I mean, it's one of those things like every kid grows up going, or a lot of kids grow up going, I'll love to play rugby for a career. And I remember some teacher or someone was like, yeah, but that's not realistic. Like 1 in 500 kids
it's true,
plays
though.
professional
like it's
sport
kind of,
as opposed to, and yeah, but that sort of was like
dampening your expectations, like pushing you down. You should change the narrative and go for it, mate.
Yeah, it made you not want to go out like, oh, I'm going to be a pro rugby player or something like that. It was just like, oh, maybe that isn't achievable, but what is achievable is maybe make the next step up or.
Yeah, I kind of feel like that's a quashing
starter.
statement as opposed to a supportive statement.
Yeah, it is a bit, yeah.
You want to say, like, oh, I want to be a lawyer. You're like, well, only a few people become a lawyer. No, hold on a second.
Yeah, exactly.
Go for it and we'll support you all the way.
Yeah, exactly. And it's that, I guess that then just turned it into, all right, well, don't need to broadcast it. That'd be awesome. But go back, study as well, do all those things. And that was kind of always something that my parents instilled as well. It's like, yeah, you can, whatever you want to do it hard, enjoy it. And so that meant do the study full time, work as well, get some casual jobs and earn some keep, and just keep cracking along with the rugby if that's what you want to do. And it was just a bit of a stepping stone process. And that's why I say I don't know if I've ever gone like, oh, I'm really, really good at this. And it's just I've put in the work and done a bit of a grind and just stepped up along the way and learnt a lot.
Now, you've been on a few podcasts, and this is your first in-person podcast. Okay, welcome. I'm sure you may not have had this question before. How did you balance the off-field shenanigans at East versus the on-field?
I think probably luckily enough it didn't really turn into a full-blown rugby career, any of that, until after. I think I got a good year of Colts footy, getting it out of your system of just, you finish playing at 12:30, you go, righto boys, where are we landing, where are we hitting the beers? And did that week in, week out, just about for the full year. And then during the week you go to the gym, go for your runs, go training, go work, go labour. You get up most mornings at 5 a.m, go do labouring and mow some lawns, or put some walls together, do whatever you need to do.
Make some keep, as you said.
Yeah, make some keep. And, I worked at my mate's dad's news agency, just whatever I worked at East, painting the lines. There was a lot of squiggly lines there for a while, and just do what you can. And it was kind of, for me, it was
the field is a bit kind of cornered. It's like, oh, Liam came a little bit late to work, and all of a sudden it's not the straight line. Is that right? The line.
We did our best.
Where's the try line?
We're by no means professionals we took the buggy and threw the footy around while we were on call. And but I think it was just, for me, it was really that freeing sort of nature of that first year out of school of like, geez, there's a lot of pressure on your OP, on your trying to win the GPS premiership, trying to get into some sort of pathway. And almost when that was over, it was like, all right, well, go back to just enjoying what you do a bit, and you'd hang with your mates, you'd still get everything you need to done. And I think that was just a really good year of, and I think that enjoyment factor really played into me playing really good footy again. As I sort of said, back at school, I was in the back of Kaylin's highlights. I was just doing lineouts and breakdowns, and I didn't really develop that much. And I think that first year was really like, oh, I'm loving this, like playing with my mates, go have a few beers afterwards, go labour during the week, still get uni in, do all that. It's fun, like everything's fun at the moment, and sort of played well off the back of that. And then from there, I guess once then at the end of that year of playing good footy consistently for a whole club season, got into the under-20s pathway. I still remember Squab calling me and been like, we'd love to have you in. And I was like, oh, awesome. That's like, I guess that little tick in the box of we're each in the next step, and go from there.
I'm curious to know your relationship with fun, with rugby, then sort of the pathways and you having fun, and then all of a sudden you get money, like it's a job. Does anything change on that front? Obviously, it becomes a bit more quote unquote serious.
Yeah, definitely, and that's why I say I think I was lucky that I almost got a lot of that out of my system before it became a job or anything like that. And same with, I'd nearly just about finished my first uni degree by the time I got my first contract. Like, it still took me 4 or 5 years after school to get my first contract, and had to play.
2018.
It was 2018,
yep.
yeah, and played in the under-20s for 2 years, and played the Oz-20s for 2 years, and in that sort of second year, I managed to play really well. I got the Oz-20s Player of the Year, and that sort of was the final catalyst to be like, all right, here's a contract.
Is that the manila folder you put across to the
thing
and saying, show us your highlights, and you're like, I've got one thing for you.
I've got this little plaque here and
little trophy.
And it was tough to get a contract at all. So I think my first year contract was 10 grand, and there's that for the first year, but you get to train with the squad, and that's what you've been enjoying. You get to do that.
And you met George Smith, right?
Met George Smith, roomed with him once.
And did he sort of not know who you were? And you
no,
knew?
Not at all.
So you're like, does he say, oh, g'day, I'm George? You're like, no shit, Sherlock.
I know. Yeah, I know.
And does he knows your name now?
I think so. I hope he remembers me. Yeah.
What did you say to him in the first meet?
I remember. I think I was just like, hey, George, that's probably it.
Cool.
Like, just how cool's this? Went home, told my mates, told the guys I was living with. So,
And then the first game for the Reds, 2018, you mentioned.
Yep.
Do you want to talk about that experience and putting that jersey on and getting out there and playing, rugby for a living, for a state, with all eyes on you, as opposed to a little bit of Colts at East where there might have been a few, 20 blokes and 20 girls watching.
Yeah, it was really, don't know if there were 20 girls back at East watching us back then, mate. But
20 people.
But yeah, it was really cool. I still think that whole between fun and work and job and stuff, like, I still don't consider any of what I do really work. Like, I don't say, I've got to go to work, going to training, like I'm going to the gym or going for a run, or like, it's still that element of like, really lucky to do this. And I think those first few years especially was, again, didn't really consider it like, oh, now I'm getting paid to do this, thing's got to change. I think for me it probably took more of a toll of once I started getting the string of injuries. That's when I was like, all right, it's not always going to be as smooth as the first few. Like I think I played 47 Super Rugby games just about straight, like apart from 1 or 2 where I wasn't picked in sort of first year. And it was just, it's like, oh, this is just how it goes. Like, you're here now and that's the way it works, and that's pretty easy. And then I think once all the injuries started happening, that's when I took a bit more of like, all right, well, if you do want to get better and keep growing and stay here, that's when you actually got to sacrifice a bit more. And I think that's when I took a lot more personally, not in terms of not having fun, but in terms of what you're willing to sacrifice. And for me, a big part of that was, I'll go out sober, or I'll not get on the piss with my mates, or I've got to miss a 21st, or I've got to miss one of those things. And that's really probably where a bit of the maturity got forced into me, just through a bit of unluckiness with injury. And it's that resilience muscle, I think, where you talk about, where you don't want to go through all that stuff, but I feel like I'm definitely a better athlete and better professional now because of that. And I still think it's fun, but then you sacrifice a few other things in terms of what you really want, and you realize what you really want to do, and that this isn't a given and this isn't taken for granted, and you've actually got to do a few things differently if you want to keep doing this and stay here and get to your potential.
And some say that's the price of entry, right, of being a professional sports person. But then you probably need a support crew around that to kind of, support you, to say, we back you, and you missed my 21st or my wedding or whatever it might be, to pursue your thing, but that's okay. Do you have that? You have a few people like that?
Definitely, yeah. As I sort of said before, all my extended family's back in South Africa, so it's sort of mum, dad, myself, and my sister, but they're also in Sydney, so they're not can't just go there for Sunday dinner and wash my clothes and that sort of thing. So I've been living in a share house with pretty much the same group of guys since the end of 2016, and it was pretty much the 3 or 4 of us plus or minus 1 or 2 until late last year, I think. Like probably the longest lasting share house in a long time. We went about 8 years, and they're my best mates. It's my missus now jokes that guys, they just get a few friends when they're younger and go, yeah, that'll do. They don't need any more friends and just keep the same crew. And that's kind of us. Like we just really bounced off each other, and with not having sort of extended family, and then my actual family is down there. I'm a big believer in family is your friends and the friends that you choose as well, and just the people who look out for you. And I think without them, they're sort of steering me a bit. There's been a few times where I go, oh, is it worth it? Like, I don't get to do what you guys do all the time and go and do all the, the fun stuff. Is it worth it? And they sort of steer me back on the skid. And
Do you think you were the first ever Wallaby captain living in a share house?
I don't know. I don't know, but I loved that sort of
in this modern day era of bright lights and money and Instagram, and you're like, oh, here my mates who've been living for 8 years. It's the same thing, and he's pretty good at lasagna, and I'm pretty good at the risotto and all this sort of stuff. And you split your bills, and
did that. Split the bills. I had to. My New Year's resolution one year, where you talk about sort of the sacrifices, was tell them, hey guys, I'm not going to be cooking with you guys anymore. I'm going to be going out on my own a bit, and because we'd those first few years, and probably when I realised I needed to start putting on some weight and some proper muscle, and I was like, guys, I can't wait until 9 p.m. to eat dinner while you guys play Xbox and that sort of thing. So it was again just a sacrifice you make of I need to kind of eat at 6 and then eat again at 9 if I'm gonna put some weight on and take this seriously and get a bit better. And again, they were like, yeah, cool, man, do what you need to do. And they were still there for a good yarn. And I think that helped, because the whole balance of going between quite an intense environment where everyone's trying to be better, you're competing against everyone, and then you come home and your mate tells you about some crazy stuff that happened on the work site at labouring or whatever happened in their day, and it's just really good balance and a shift of perspective.
Did you send them a text every now and then and say, mate, I can't come home for dinner, I'm just playing for the Wallabies? Yeah. And by the way, if you want to watch it, switch it on. They go, no, we got this Netflix series we're watching. Eh?
Yeah. Mate, that happened a lot. The big times you come home, your bed's not made, and you're like, what's going on? Like, someone stayed over the other night and I let them sleep in your bed because you weren't there for a few weeks. And you go, righto, whatever. We're all pretty close, so it's just the way it went.
And the leadership side of rugby, you were thrown in pretty early as captain. Is there something that you've always been and wanted to do, is sort of focus a little bit on leadership, and has that sort of evolved naturally? Do you think you're a natural leader?
I think I'm probably a natural leader, and I probably only say that because it wasn't really anything that I wanted. Like, I didn't go seeking it. I didn't, when it sort of got handed to me in 2020, there was like, put your hand up if you want to be in line for captain next year. And I didn't put my hand up, mate. And probably not because I didn't think I'd be good at it or anything, but just because I've always thought it's like, it's up to the squad to pick who you sort of want and who represents and reflects what you're about a bit more. And so I never really went searching for it. When it came, I sort of went, wow, that's big, and I wanted to do it justice. And I think then I put a lot more time into trying to develop areas of that. And initially when I first got it, I think I spent too much time on like, how do I have to do things differently to be the leader? After a while, probably once COVID happened, I sort of went, all right, I wasn't playing as good footy because I was putting too much emphasis on the leadership side of it and not letting my game do the talking. And I think that's when I probably took a bit more of a backseat and went, all right, well, actually, you got chosen for a reason, not doing anything out of the ordinary other than just the person you are. And that's kind of what it went back to, a little bit of just be your natural self. Of you're a resilient guy, you're a hard worker, and people obviously took some like to that and some following to that. And but I definitely grow that aspect, and that's where even the uni side, I picked up a master's of business, majoring in management, which had a lot of parallels to sort of leadership and all that stuff. And I really enjoyed, same with the study thing the whole way along, just trying to, whatever I was doing, as my parents sort of said, whatever I was doing, I wanted to do it really well. And so even that leadership aspect and the captaincy aspect was like, all right, well, how can I get a little bit better there, or how can I grow my leadership, or how can I do that? And would read a lot of books about sports leaders or business leaders and do that sort of stuff, and listen to podcasts and just pick up as much information as I can and then try and make the best decision with it.
How would you define yourself now as a leader?
I think I'm probably a lot more comfortable taking a bit of a back seat. Like I think I've gone from, having to speak a lot early on and try and do that to, I think I'm definitely a lead by example or a lead by action sort of guy. And so I think now I trust the people around me a lot more, let them do their thing. And I think I know how to pick the right time of when I need to inject and when I don't, just based on has what's been needed to say been said. And if it has, then doesn't need to come out of my mouth. And then that way when I do speak, it'll have a greater impact. And I think just you learn that as well when you're off the field injured, that you can't just be the only voice. Otherwise, when you're gone, it just becomes a mess. And so just being a bit more selective and when I really try to impact through that way.
So a bit more delegation and let things be, but then when it's needed, you come in and you say, right, this is what I think now.
Yeah, a little bit.
So let things dictate themselves, because these are grown men you're playing with.
Exactly.
They've got the skills. They don't need to be told, oh, mate, you should have caught that, stuff like that.
Definitely, yeah. And as I said, I'm naturally a lead by example kind of guy. I'm not the loudest in the group. I'm not the funniest in the group, all that sort of thing. So it's around a big thing Thorny sort of taught me, and I guess that I always knew and learned from my parents, but then really understood in the rugby and professional setting was make sure your own backyard's in order before you ask anyone else to do anything. And again, I think a lot of my leadership growth came actually through these injuries and through the resilience I had to show there. And so without being able to directly impact the team, how can I show the team that this is the way forward or this is what we've got to do? And it's by being super diligent, by making sure I'm owning everything I can, my preparation's the best it can be. As I said, you cut out going on the piss more, read books around sleep, read all that stuff, just whatever I could do to try and make sure that I was owning what I was going to do to get back on the field as quickly as possible. So Kevy Hall's biggest point as well to me when I was injured was, the best thing you can do for the team is get yourself back out there for the team. And so you have to really focus on what you're going to do to get back out there. And yeah, I guess then you can put in your 2 cents because it carries a lot more worth.
I'm interested to know when you do the prep, you get everything right, you're feeling good, and you go out and you probably play a really good game yourself, but your team gets pumped. How do you feel?
I think, again, just the development of my career is at the start. You're like, oh, phew, at least I sort of did my best and sort of put my best foot forward and I can get selected again next week. And then as you sort of get a bit more older and probably a bit more...
you're 80-odd games through, aren't you?
Yeah, and probably you get a bit more
wiser
wiggle room from coaches
yeah.
in terms of, you might have a bad game 1 week, but you've got the history, you've got the sort of experience there. And that's when you become a lot more as a leader as well. Like, all right, I might have played awesome, but geez, we didn't function, or the line-out didn't function, or we're just not playing to our potential, or what's the issue there, how do we fix it? And that keeps you up a lot more than like, oh, geez, I missed a tackle. And you can sort of live with that because, again, you've done as much preparation as you can personally to get yourself to performing out on the field. Or that's kind of my mantra. It's like I can live with messing up if I've done the work, if I did the preparation, if I did my tackles during the week and it just didn't come off sort of thing. That's when the leadership side of it and the team isn't quite where we need to be. What's that? And, Tate and I would talk a lot. We'd be texting, calling all the time after games. We'd be then talking to the coaches and trying to get ahead of that for the next week going. And, that's a tiring process as well. So it's, I'd say it's probably harder now having to worry more about the team than about your own individual performance the whole time.
Co-captaincy, the Lions experimented with it and with Harris Andrews and Lachie Neale, and it sort of was kind of a bit new in the AFL. In rugby, you and Tate, co-captaincy. Talk to me about that, the dynamic, the relationship you have with Tate, the sort of ups and downs, who does what, delegation, but also you're part of the same team. sort of backs, sort of forwards as well.
Yeah. I think it's worked really well. I think probably when we started, we weren't all that sure, but again, I've been injured for large parts of the last few years, and so it's kind of been a blessing in disguise in that way of having that leader that's still on the field and helping develop other leaders as well. But I think Tate and I complement each other really well. We were good mates in our sort of similar friendship group within the team prior to all that happening. And I think, he's a back, I'm a forward. Rugby's a simple game, but there's also a lot of complexities within sort of the understanding of really how to impact different aspects of it. And, so I can take a bit more of an ownership around that line out and that forward capability, and then he can do the backs and the attacking wise. More of a defensive player, he's more of an attacking player. He's quite an emotional, fierce guy, passionate guy as well, whereas I'm probably more calm, reasoning, logic. Just think we bounce off each other, and then as we've sort of learnt over the years, when that changes and I get a bit red-headed and a bit hot, he comes in with the calming one, and we've just learnt how to sort of read the room. If the coaches are going hot and heavy, we know how to bring it back down to, all right, guys, this is what we need to do. If the coaches are this is the plan, but we're not getting a reaction, then we can go emotional and try and get that rise out of the boys. And it's just been, again, good growth, good learning. And I think it's not that popular, it's not that necessary, because probably the hardest part of it is when you're co-captains and you're sort of saying it's who has the final say, that sort of stuff. But in terms of how many different roles and different things you have to manage and different captaincy aspects, even before the game, Tate as a halfback often needs to get out there real early, do his kicking, do his passing, do all his basics before he then joins in on individual warm-up and team stuff. So I'd nail the coin toss. I go and talk to the refs, and I become the major voice there, and he can be freer to do that. And then it's just picking up the loads where the other one needs it to. I think it's been good.
So organically worked really, really well.
Yeah.
I'm also interested around the successful teams that you've been in, the 2021 team that won the Super Rugby program, and then also the Wallabies, and you've played a few games, 6 games or so, and then sort of a different culture. Again, Wallabies versus Queensland, but the successful teams that you've played in, what do you think the successful teams have done right versus the teams that have finished bottom?
I think there's probably been a greater understanding of how we want to play and what kind of team we want to be, and it becomes a lot easier to own that role and own that accountability and be able to pull each other up when you need to, or encourage each other when you need to, when you know what you're trying to do. And that's, something I've really noticed probably last year. We were really, really clear on our detail, on our roles, on how we want to end up, on what we want to grow in our game. And you see that with probably the Wallabies under Joe Schmidt as well, how they've really grown. Really, really clear on, this is the type of team we want to play. This is the sort of breakdown we want to be. This is how we want to manage games, win them out, close them out, that sort of thing. I think it's a lot easier and more to be successful when you understand what you're trying to be. When you just sort of float around and go with the flow and hope that you don't get exposed, or hope that this works against this team and this doesn't. When you're a lot more clear around your role and your style of play, I think same with anything really. You can be a bit more confident in it.
Yeah, there's a song called "I'm on the road to nowhere." If you don't know where you're going, it's pretty hard to kind of define your goal.
How do you know when you get there or not? Yeah.
Yeah, and so speaking of goals, and you've sort of touched on it earlier when you were sort of saying, if I make the bench, I might then make the starting lineup, and now you're in the process of recovery from an injury. Have you got a goal in mind?
Honestly, the only goal at the moment is to get back playing footy. It's prior to this, all the injuries I've had have been pretty sort of tough injuries and big injuries and stuff, but reasonably smooth along the way. This is probably the first real big one I've had that just hasn't gone to plan multiple times. I've had 3 surgeries on this shoulder since that injury against Wales, trying to sort of figure out what's happening and get everything working the way it should, and it just not cooperating as easily as it has in the past. And so I guess the only goal is to get back playing footy, because I think as we sort of speak about the team stuff, I'm a lot more confident in what I can bring to a team now and what I sort of assert as a player and as a leader. And so I feel that if I can get myself healthy and get myself back playing, then the rest will take care of itself because of the years and years of work and preparation you've done up to that point. And so the only goal is to get the shoulder working and playing again.
We've got a big rugby schedule over the next coming years in Australia. Grassroots rugby is probably at a tough spot, I'd expect, and participation rates and rugby per se in the competition landscape between AFL, NRL and other sports, etc. Keen to hear your views on rugby per se as a junior level and also what you've gone through. You didn't really go through the traditional pathways and coming from South Africa, but is there something which you would like to see rugby in a couple of years?
I think it's such a hard one because grassroots produces the top level, but the top level funds the grassroots level, and that's where the other sports like AFL and NRL really have it over us in that it generates so much money that they can really pump that into grassroots.
At the top, filtering it to the bottom to go back up.
Filter it back down to then feed up and create
which comes at a board
circle,
level, and it comes at a management level then as well, as opposed to players playing in performance as well.
Yeah, which is why I think this next few years with the Lions and the World Cup and then the Women's World Cup after that is just going to be so important. Like you can see the way the women's game has grown with a bit more investment in the game, and that comes off the back of probably the Seven success.
We had Bella Nasser in recently, actually, on the podcast.
Oh, really?
So, she was sort of half migrating to the 15 game as well because there's opportunities and World Cups, etc. It's exciting.
So I think the next few years I don't think it's as dire as probably do or die, but I think if we mismanage this next few years, it's hard to come back from. So I think the board and Rugby Australia is doing a much better job of actually controlling our finances and bringing ourselves back into actually, hey, let's become a bit more of a business so that we can keep doing the thing we love and our purpose of making rugby great in Australia. But it goes back to that grassroots of they want more attention and they want to see more of a slice of the pie, I think. And I think that's so necessary because you go to those clubs and so many volunteers and so many people just doing their best to try and keep everyone afloat until they get to that level. And then, you look at the NRL will just come in and sweep them or something like that. It's a very hard problem to combat, and I don't know the full answer, but I think the top level of the game owes it to the grassroots to really treat this next few years seriously and get results that'll turn into financial freedom to reinvest and create that cycle that the other sports have going really well.
And as a kid, you were growing up and you saw these idols and you wanted to get their autograph, probably pre-selfie days, but now being a player yourself and people look up to you and they know your name, how do you go about in managing that yourself? Yeah,
it's. I mean, I think you want to try and give back as much as you can. I was down at East last night with under-14s there trying to help out, but it's also a weird one because you don't see yourself as some hotshot celebrity or autograph giver or the
some
same
kids
as
out,
what
Liam,
you saw.
can I have it? You're like, it's me.
Yeah, kind of the same as when you were younger and you'd be like, oh, that's that guy and that's awesome and I want it doesn't then translate to like, I'm that guy now and I got, but you do the best you can. You try and help out where you can. Our group at the Reds is really, really good at that around. So many of them go back to their clubs. They help out. They're happy to do promos. They're happy to talk to people, take photos at the airport, all that sort of stuff. Like they're really, really good. And that's, I think that was probably instilled a lot through Thorny in the early days of just being a role model, showing care for the club and the jersey and the people that you represent. Did a lot of those Reds to Region stuff. I don't know if you saw, but going out to country towns and country places where the rugby probably doesn't reach that often outside of southeast Queensland and just trying to give back, like not go there to take. And you get a lot of good stuff and cool stuff as a professional player now, but it's actually just giving back and helping and giving you time. And I think that's filtered through a lot of the guys and just kept in their nature where they want to help as much as they can. But it's, again, it comes down to the game probably needs a bit more help than just a professional player going down and holding some pads at a thing. We need the whole game to get in order, and then that becomes so much more meaningful, I think.
And particularly with social media, etc., some of these teenage kids and whatever can follow their idols and see them, and they're probably a little bit more well-known and well-followed than idols these days. So it's interesting that you mentioned that. How do you go with all that sort of stuff as well, with the idea of that wherever you go and you're having a beer or you're having a coffee, someone might take a snap of you?
Yeah, that's probably a weird thing to consider. I'm not amazing on the social media and stuff. I sometimes wish I was. You see the guys who can really plug up sponsors and do all that stuff and just make a really
I'm at
cool
the gym, I'm at the cafe,
and,
I'm at my favourite restaurant.
Exactly.
Like, here's me cuddling my kids. And, oh, wow.
And create that life that people want to follow these days. That's not exactly me and my style, but, it is weird. You go down to a younger team and try and help them out and they go, oh, I sent you a message request, or will you follow me back? And like that's the new thing of like, oh, so-and-so's following me.
It's just an autograph on a piece of paper that you found that your parents in the handbag back in down at the Gabby. You're like, is there something you've got that I can get an autograph on?
Yeah, but now it's at school, they're showing who follows them back from the boys that they messaged. And it's a weird one, but I think we're quite, in a way, we're quite lucky up here in Queensland where, you don't have the sort of cult following that leagueies do where you go to the shops and you're getting hounded and doing that. You see
all the Collingwood player in Melbourne,
AFL
right?
players
at an airport or something. Yeah,
they go outside, they're getting hounded, and they're getting and hounded's the wrong word, but you generally got phones, you got paparazzi in your face. Whereas up here, it's if you get sort of called, it's actually like, oh wow, they follow rugby, they want rugby to do well. You give them your time any day of the week. So.
Yeah, they're showing you some love. You show them some love back.
Yeah. So
just touching on sport there for a second, I'm going to ask you about your all-time favourite sporting moment.
My all-time favourite sporting moment is, as I said before, I'm a massive LeBron fan. To me, he's just the epitome of a modern athlete. Where you talk about having cameras in your face the whole time. Like, he's never really messed up. He's been good to his family. He's been good to trying to help as many people as he can. He's like you talk about investing in yourself. It's like $1.5 million
in himself, his personal trainer, his dietitian, his physiotherapist,
chef, like all that stuff.
Psychologist probably as well.
All that sort of stuff, and just the longevity. Like that's, I guess, in terms of making the most of what you got. Like that's sort of stuff I've really taken out. So probably the 2016 championship when he come back from 3-1, went beast mode, him and Kyrie, and just watching that last game with the block and then Kyrie hitting the three, that was
LeBron James. You're the first scoreboard moment with LeBron James. We've had lots of different Ash Barty the other day at Wimbledon. We had the Matildas. It's been awesome to go down memory lane on some of these sporting events.
Oh, that's great.
And speaking of events, the scoreboard moment, which is a moment in your life which you kind of pretty clear, and you remember, and you're like, I remember that, and that caused that. It's not like a sliding doors moment. Have you got a scoreboard moment?
Yeah, I kind of alluded to it before, but it was in the start of grade 10 when my parents, my family, we came over from South Africa. We lived in Sydney for a little bit. Then we went to Brizzy and then was there at Churchy from grade 7 to 9. Then the end of grade 9, they said, Dad's job's moved. We've got to move back to Sydney. And I chucked a little bit of a hissy fit. I was talking to my dad about it actually the other day, and he was saying that because I always thought I just threw a bit of a tantrum and they said, oh, you can stay if you want or whatever. But he said that when we moved from Sydney to Brisbane, he made a promise to me that if we ever moved again, I'd give him the option. He'd give me the option of what I wanted to do. And apparently I called him out on that and said, you said when I... And so they sort of said, all right, well, you can come with us or you can try out boarding. And I think Mum thought it was just a bit of a throwaway. Apparently I was a massive sort of mama's boy then, didn't know how to do anything, wouldn't tie my own shoes, tie my own tie, that sort of stuff.
My wife will say that I'm a mum's boy, but anyway.
And I tried boarding and I loved it. What's not to love? You got 80-odd guys in the boarding house there. Whenever you wanted to play touch footy, you got a game right there. You're always hanging out with your mates. You get up to a bit of no good. You get a good routine. You learn a bit more about yourself because you don't have mum and dad there saying, hey, mate, do this, make your bed, wash your clothes, whatever. If you miss laundry, you're wearing dirty clothes for the next few days sort of thing. And for me, that was the real sort of moment because as I've grown up a bit more, I've realised how fortunate I was with that. My parents, as I say, we used to watch rugby all the time. They loved watching rugby. Dad, for grade 12, flew up and watched every game of mine, even of first 15. And I took that away from them by keeping the opportunity to be up here and them go down there. And so that's, I think, really where I got that whole, if I'm going to be here, if I'm going to be away from my family, I'm going to give it all I've got. And I think that's really just stayed with me the whole time. I don't think I've ever been the most talented or the most athletic or anything like that. But I've always had that mindset of I'm going to give it everything I've got. If if what I've got's not enough, I can sort of live with that. And it transformed me into, if I want to do something, I've got no one else there that's forcing me to get out of bed, setting the alarm sort of thing. I've got to do it myself. And I think that's kept me in good stead for the rest of my life. And that's kind of the moment I attribute it to.
One final question, Liam. Going back to that 15-year-old boy that's been given the news that he's about to board, there's 15-year-old boys and girls out there that are playing sport and that were once a young Liam, maybe having the aspiration to play at the highest level. What's some advice that you can give to the 15-year-old now?
The main thing I think is go back to enjoyment. Like, I think if you're not enjoying it, you're not going to try a bit harder. You're doing it for someone else. Like, I think that was also probably the big thing, is I felt like back then I was doing a lot of the stuff just because my parents wanted me to play rugby. That's what I wanted to do. I felt, again, probably a bit freed from pressure of like, all right, well, actually, this is pretty cool. Like, don't have to worry about my parents over my shoulder, like trying to please them, look back, oh, did they see that tackle or whatever. All that stuff that I sort of put on myself more than them actually putting on me. But if you enjoy it, you either just enjoy the game and that's great, that's all there is to it, or you enjoy it and you put in a bit more work because it's what you like and what you want to do. And if that's the route you want to take, then you're going to have to put in some hard work over the time. And it's a lot easier to put in that hard work if you remember why you love it and why you do it.
Liam Wright, thank you so much for being on Scoreboard, the podcast today, and sharing some insights into your life from the early days in South Africa to where you are now and your current position with the shoulder injury. And I wish you all the best in terms of your recovery and the next phase of your life, rugby on and off the field.
Thanks, Chris. Really enjoyed it.